Well, good morning, good afternoon and good evening depending on where you're joining us from, and a warm welcome to our Nuix webinar. My name is David Quist. I'm the Sales Director at Nuix for our Australian and New Zealand regions, and I'll be your moderator for this session today. Today we're going to focus on the Nuix 7.2 platform, and we'll be running you through the feature enhancements that have been included, and most importantly how these can assist with your investigative and eDiscovery challenges. So whilst we wait a couple more moments for our audience, you would have seen a quick poll question, and that is really just to help us understand our audience a little bit better. So we've got a wide variety of results through already, which is terrific, and I'd certainly encourage you to participate in the polls over the session today. From a housekeeping perspective, within your webinar controls there is a little chat box window, so we'd encourage you to absolutely send your questions through, and we'll run through these at the end of the session. And similarly, there's a survey, and we'd really appreciate your feedback, so please take a moment at the end of the session for us just to complete that. So with the hygiene things out of the way, I'd really like to introduce Brendan Hill, who's our speaker today. Brendan has been part of the Nuix team for the last 3 years and using the Nuix software for probably the last 9 years as well. He brings a bit of a unique background to us, given that he's worked in both law enforcement organisations and also run a large litigation support team at one of Australia's largest law firms. So the great thing here is that he's going to be able to share both an investigative lens and an eDiscovery perspective for us on how the enhancements that we've got in the 7.2 platform can actually bring more value to you and to your teams as well. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to Brendan and let you take it from here.
Thank you very much, David. And again, welcome to everyone that's joining us today for this webinar. I hope you enjoy it, and please ask questions in the chat window, as David mentioned, and we'll look to answer those towards the end of the webinar. So today I'm here to talk about Nuix 7.2 and the various features and enhancements that are included in that most recent release. So this slide very quickly points out probably the key features within inside 7.2. I've broken them down into 3 categories, being workflow, evidence and analysis, and enhancements. As David mentioned, I've been a user of Nuix close to 9 years now, and this particular release has brought some exciting features with it. So starting from the top, we've got the password bank, so now allowing our users to decrypt files such as Office documents or encrypted containers such as zip or 7-zip files using known passwords. We all have also built in the imaging and production profiles. So this is allowing users now to be more repeatable and defensible in their processes. Also with document and imaging improvements, custom slip sheeting, and OCR enhancements. We've also got document production workflow improvements as well. So a lot of these features I'll touch on as we go through the technical walkthrough at the end of these slides. With our evidence and analysis, our development team have worked very hard in building in additional cloud connectors. We all have also included a Nuix imager tool with 7.2. And there's a great pivoting feature within inside the Workbench application as well. Enhancements around Elasticsearch, allowing us now to be much more collaborative across our data and Nuix cases. We also offer the offline maps. So if you're looking at geotag properties or photos as an example, prior to 7.2 you would need to have an internet connection out in order to use the map function, but we now have the ability to download offline maps if you're in a sandbox environment. I firstly want to throw up just one slide here, and this is all about immediate access. So I briefly just touched on that. So I guess you could refer to this as Nuix's utopia. Okay, so looking at this one particular slide, we can automate a lot of our Nuix tasks now using our Nuix management console. Using an Elasticsearch backend, we can process large volumes of data into a Nuix federated data repository and simultaneously access that data using our Nuix Workbench product in addition to web review. All right, so in a perfect scenario, you could be a power user within inside Nuix, doing that heavy lifting within inside the Workbench application, doing that deep dive level analysis, but simultaneously have reviewers accessing the same data set, the same case via web review and reviewing those documents. And a lot of smarts can be built into the process with things like worker-side scripting. So being able to tag relevant items up a lot quicker for review. And we'll touch on that with the technical walkthrough as well. I won't spend too much time on these slides because obviously once we get into the product, I'll show you how it all works, how it all fits together. So the first one is the password bank. So for users of Nuix now, the password bank is available to you in your evidence processing settings. So essentially allowing you to throw a word list at a selected number of encrypted files for Nuix to go out and decrypt those files and extract the text. OCR improvements. So this is very exciting as far as improving the speed with regards to OCR. A lot of different options that are available to you now. I guess the main call out is the fact that we're able to OCR native image files such as JPEGs or bitmap files. We no longer need to render these out to PDF files in order to OCR. We can also choose whether we wish to store an OCR PDF in our case. So if we were to split eDiscovery and investigations down the middle, investigations typically would handle their OCR documents a lot differently than what an eDiscovery practitioner would. So you have the flexibility now to not store the OCR PDF inside your case, therefore reducing the size of your case overall over time. You also have the ability to choose a custom case directory. So i.e., if there is a large matter that you're working on, you could set up this custom case directory. So each time an OCR function is run, it will query that case directory and determine if it's already OCR'd a duplicate document previously. And lastly is that we can also set out a timeout limit as well. All right, so there's nothing worse than launching an OCR job on a Thursday night and hoping to come in on Friday morning that it's all going to be finished, and to find out that the process was stuck on one particular file for too long. So you can set that timeout now. So our imaging and production profiles. So this, again, is all about repeatability and defensibility as well. Okay, so being able to create profiles to stipulate how you want Office files rendered each time. Okay, so it's a set and forget. So you create this profile once and it's reusable on one matter or various matters. If there's particular protocols that you need to adhere to, or even that you want to expedite your export process. Moving down, you can even create custom slip sheets or placeholders. So depending on the type of file, you can specify that if a file is encrypted, it would generate this particular slip sheet. Likewise, if you have files inside your case that when rendered out, they may render to 1,000 pages, you can restrict it to say, if it does render to 1,000 pages, just render a PDF placeholder instead. The placeholder or slip sheet can be customized according to your standards or protocol. Again, you can upload your own images and also your own custom introduction as well. The pivoting feature is quite exciting, and I think it just allows all our users to have the best analytics at their fingertips. So the pivoting feature essentially works on the principle of, if you isolate a particular incident within inside your data set, I mean, if we were to take in this particular screenshot, it's an email, that email is of interest, okay? So essentially, you want to find out what else has occurred around the time this email was sent. So you can now pivot by time, all right? So we all know that Nuix is able to process, various different file types. So you're able to have all various sources of evidence within one application. So being able to pivot on a particular event and then look across all your evidence in one application is very, very powerful. It will also work with location as well. So using the geotag properties, again, looking at images, you're able to pivot on location within a certain distance. You can customize that distance as well, and then throw that out into a map to see perhaps the movements of a particular person of interest. So lastly on the slides, it's all about our Nuix Imager tool. Okay. So Nuix Imager, as I mentioned, becomes part of the 7.2 install. So if you have installed Nuix 7.2 already, and you may have been unaware that you have Imager as part of that install, simply do a search within your program files for Nuix Imager and you'll have it there. So essentially, you're able to do a lot of things with the Imager. You can create full disk images into an E01 or RAW format, but also at your fingertips you have the ability to collect from all the same data repositories as are available to you in our core products. So things like loose files and folders, Gmail, any cloud-based mail, or even cloud-based storage such as Dropbox or Google Drive. So from there you can create what we call a Nuix logical image inside the Imager tool, which can then be processed inside Workbench. So I guess with Imager itself, what we're offering our clients is we're able to meet that end-to-end process. Okay, so being able to collect the evidence, whether it be on-site, so if you're an investigator serving a warrant, you could have the Nuix Imager install file sitting on a USB stick, launch it on-site, and collect remotely, and then take it back to your lab for further processing. Okay, so being able to export a Nuix logical image file, or even a raw or forensic image, E01 as well. So what I'll do is I will stop there, and it's time for another poll. So I'll throw that poll up now.
So the poll question for just while Brendan prepares to transition to the demo part is, what are the sum of the pain points in your existing eDiscovery and investigations workflow? So if you could take a moment and please tick all that apply. Some of the pain points that we've heard from our customers include having to use multiple products, complications of some of the more technical tools, a lack of automation and repeatability, delays in getting access to the data for review, so obviously the subject matter experts and the time taken from collection to getting in front of them, and then the other one is no collaborative framework. So we might sort of count that down for a couple of seconds and then have a look at the results and transition into the product side of things. So I think what we're seeing from, I think is pretty consistent with the discussions that we have certainly in this region. Delays in terms of data review is certainly something that's particularly important, and also with customers looking to rationalise the software tools that they have and enhance their eDiscovery and investigation sort of processes. So I'd like to thank everybody for their input to that. That certainly helps sort of Nuix in terms of how we position our software and what we look to do as well. Brendan, can I move it back to you to run through the technical side?
Absolutely. And just looking at those responses to the poll, it was, as David says, pretty much on the market as what we hear from the market. But obviously, the big one there was being able to get access to the data quicker. And I guess that's what today, is all about: is being able to be in that position where you can. Time is always against us, and being able to offer documents out or items out or evidence out, however you wish to refer to it, for review a lot quicker is advantageous for everybody. So I guess walking through the technical steps now, so I hope you get that feel with how Nuix can assist you with that. All right. So what I want to start with first is the Nuix Imager. So we'll step through the typical workflow. So we're going to collect and then look at the core product after some items have been ingested, and then do some analysis on those files. So, we're going to use a typical kind of case study. It's an insider threat. I think everyone can kind of relate to that, the different ways that can be handled. All right, so in this particular scenario, I'll give you some brief background. Essentially, an individual has been suspected of insider threats. His name is Kevin McAllister, and we're going to collect some data from him and then process that through Nuix to do some further analysis. So what we're looking at here is the Nuix Imager tool. Okay, so as I mentioned in the slides, if by clicking on the Add Evidence button, you can see all the different repositories that we can collect from. Now, if you're a current user of Nuix, these are not unfamiliar to you, so you have the same ability to collect using Workbench. Okay, but this now allows you to collect remotely if you wish to. All right, so things like being able to collect from a mail store. All right, so if I was to choose that, I could choose a custom profile such as Gmail. It's got to pre-populate all the fields that are required. I type in a username, which is the person's email address. So we've got the credentials for Kevin McAllister's Gmail account, and I'll type in his password. Test that connection to make sure it is actually going to connect for us. Once we get that green tick, we can go OK. And you can see here that it's now pre-populated our evidence tree. So what's important to note at this point is that obviously we're not processing anything. We're getting a bird's eye look at the evidence at this point. Okay, so I can start to drill down into his Gmail account. And I can also start to go into folders if I wish to. Obviously, being an insider threat, perhaps sent mail is of interest to us. And we can see that there would be some email in there. All right, so we could potentially look at that and look at the textual content. All right.
Brendan, whilst you're talking about email, one of the questions that's just come through from Daniel, and I think it probably affects a lot of our clients. So the question was: is can Imager collect local PST files that are in use and locked by Outlook? Is that something that you can answer now, or is that certainly as we're looking at email sources, that seems to be one of the common sort of queries?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it will collect the PST file. How it's obviously, I'm not too sure how the file will be handled afterwards, if it will be seen as corrupted, but I can definitely check that out and get back to you, Daniel. That's not a problem.
Thanks, Brendan.
Okay, so from this point is that we can start to, like I said, we can start to cherry pick. So if you want everything perhaps in the sent mail, you could basically choose everything and add that to the export items list. Okay, so you could then output that file into whatever format you wish, or also you could then go to export a logical image as well. Okay, so that logical image is the same as any other image type format. You choose your location, you'll give it the case number and evidence number, the examiner details, all that relevant information that's required. Okay. Just very quickly is that in here I've already got pre-populated a Google Drive account. What's interesting about Google Drive when we connect in is that we are able to see deleted information. We can capture all that information in here. All right. Coming back to our evidence, just talking about the additional cloud connectors that we've built in. So you'll see that these four, so your Box, Google Drive, OneDrive and Apple iCloud, they're the most recent cloud connectors that have been included in 7.2. And what's probably interesting about Apple iCloud, if you're an investigator collecting evidence from an iCloud repository, is that people update or back up their iDevice into iCloud. So in one hit, you could collect their device, their backup, and then look at that with inside Nuix for some deep dive forensics. Okay. So we could also add, sorry, I meant to add an actual local disk as well. So out on site, this could be a laptop with the standard write blocking device attached with a hard drive, and I can capture that hard drive and then create a full forensic image of that. Okay, so create a full E01 or raw image. It's going to capture all the normal information such as model and serial number. You can verify that image. You also have the ability of setting compression and then splitting the image file into segments as well. Okay. So just before I move on, I've got one question here about, is a dongle needed for Imager? I think that's a good question. At this stage, licensing, the Nuix Imager tool does require a license at this stage, yes.
Can that be a soft dongle, Brendan, or does it need to be a physical dongle? I think is probably the question a little bit.
Okay, it can be physical, absolutely. It just operates the same as our standard application, Workbench. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just move on. Okay, so we've collected our evidence now, and it's now time to obviously look at that within inside our core product, being the Nuix Workbench. Just going to minimize that window and open up Nuix Workbench here. Okay, so I'm not going to step through the process of actually ingesting data because there's nothing too exciting about that actual step. So this is after some data has actually been ingested. All right, so but now what we're going to talk through is the scenario of immediate access. Okay, so being able to provide access to this evidence simultaneously while something is actually being processed within inside the case. And to demonstrate that to you, what I'm going to do is walk through selecting some emails, and as I mentioned, this is an insider threat. So we've been, as a power user, I've been asked to analyse or to isolate emails that are going external from the organisation, and in this particular example, the organisation is, of course, Enron, and we're going to isolate any emails going external to one recipient. All right, so that is of concern, and the investigators or the reviewers want to look at those type of emails first. So I've got just over 1,000 emails selected here. I'm going to choose to reload. So before I proceed, this particular case that we're looking at has an Elasticsearch backend. Okay, so it's not using our traditional Lucene and Derby databases. It is using Elasticsearch. And I'll show you some things that allows us to do. So I'm going to reload. So our typical processing settings screens will appear, but I'm going to go across to our worker-side scripts. Okay, so being out in the field as often as I am, not many people, current Nuix users, leverage the worker-side script functionality, but this does allow you to do a lot of great things, either during your initial ingestion stage or when you're reloading evidence like we're doing now. So some things that you can do with worker-side scripting is being able to deduplicate whilst ingesting, and also perhaps OCRing whilst ingesting. This particular worker script, like I said, is going to look at these emails and then tag up any particular files that are responsive to that criteria. So if I bring your attention across to the filtered items list here, over here, you'll see that there's no tags currently generated in this particular case. All right. So once we hit OK, these items will actually load into a processing screen. Okay. We'll give it some time to load and to kick in. But what I want to do whilst that's actually loading is I just want to launch up now Web Review. I'll quickly log into Web Review here. So we're going to log into the exact same case. All right. So we have this megacore case that's created in Elasticsearch. So what Elasticsearch allows us to do, or one of the many things that allows us to do, is it eliminates case locking. All right. So you can see that the files will start processing over here, but simultaneously I can be still reviewing those items inside Web Review. All right. So you see that it will start to populate. We'll let this kick on for a little while, but previously, for current users using Nuix, you would never be able to launch a Workbench tab whilst any ingestion or any processing task is occurring. And as you can see, it's processing over here. And if we go back to our Workbench tab, I can still continue to do searching if I wish and bring back results. I could tag these items, whatever I want to do. If I was to drill down into tags, you can see that the email, the tag that has been created here by the worker-side script, I could select that. You can see that I'm getting emails actually populated with inside this tag. And then you can see here that the credential or the email address is coming from an Enron email address going out to a Yahoo. Okay, so that meets our criteria as far as what the worker-side script is looking for. If we were to quickly go back into Web Review, I can bring down tags, Just let me go back, sorry. Come back into tags, drill that down, and then I can search on that. Okay, it's probably found more emails now during the time that I've gone between the applications. It will load those emails into a grid view. As you can see now, I've got 66 results against that tag. As we go back, you'll see it's actually found more again. So what I can do now is I can start reviewing. All right, so you can see all the header information. I could start coding if I wanted to. So whether this email is true or false, I'm actually seeing some good keyword highlights are happening while I'm reviewing. So all this is very collaborative, and you've provided that immediate access to your reviewers. So whether you're in eDiscovery or whether you're in investigations in law enforcement or whatever it may be, it's all about getting the heat off yourselves and getting access to these documents a lot quicker. Okay. So if we come back to the case, if I come back to my grid view, I can then do still some great analysis in here. So I want to focus in on any Yahoo accounts and do my search. Okay, so I can start focusing in on particular emails if I wanted to. I can start to bulk code those if I wanted to, whatever it may be. The point of this particular demonstration is that it's immediate access. Okay, and you've leveraged that worker-side script functionality to allow you to move quicker. And that processing is actually finished. Okay, and what that script was also doing, if we go to our tags, I'm just going to choose an email, is I forgot to mention that that worker-side script was also applying some custom metadata. Okay, so again, the ability of Nuix to apply custom metadata to files is that we've applied the number of recipients as 1. All right, so that's something that you could later search on or categorize by bulk if you wanted to. Okay, so I just wanted to step through that to show you the benefits of having an Elasticsearch backend in conjunction with leveraging something like worker-side scripting and having Workbench and Web Review as your collaborative tools on top of your Nuix case. So moving on, I just wanted to I'll close all my other Workbench windows. I'm just going to clear this. So moving along is that we now want to start, if we were to say those emails we're looking at were in relation to the insider threat scenario that we're talking about, we found nothing. So we now want to move on to other lines of communication. Okay. So now we know that Kevin McAllister was actually using Skype internally. So I'm going to focus in on the Kevin McAllister custodian, bring back all my various sources of data that I've collected for him. So we've got Gmail, we've got Skype, we've got file server data, whatever it may be. Could be mobile phone records, all within inside Nuix. So we're going to focus on Skype chats. Okay, so I'm going to pull that back. So now we're seeing all the different Skype chats here. And you can see that there's 66 Skype chats, which for all of you on the webinar is not a lot. So you could sit there and easily review these. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to throw these Skype chats out into an event map. Okay, so we're now seeing in timeline. So you could simply just flick through these and see the textual content update. All right, so what we'll do is that we'll expedite the process. We've made some assumptions that Kevin was actually emailing something out of the organisation. And if we were to come down a bit further down the chain, up to here, okay, so we can start to see that Kevin McAllister is talking to someone, and he's mentioning that he has a personal email account that he could send it out that way. So obviously that raises some concerns. You can see that there's various replies here as well. So we've got 4 replies. And you can see that it's an Edward Scissorhands replying to Kevin McAllister. Okay, so if we skip to the last one, we can see that Edward's now saying to him, well, here's my email address, escissor.corrupt@gmail. Okay, so we'll click to the next Skype chat, and he's obviously acknowledging that. And he's now saying, we'll send some stuff shortly, just need to quick in on the system and pull it down. So again, that's raising some alerts. So we'll skip across. So here, check out your email. All right. So now this could be a point in time. All right. So this is an event that has occurred. So I'm going to double click on that particular Skype chat and isolate that out into a Workbench window. So now we're going to start leveraging that pivot function. All right, so I'm just going to select that particular Skype chat. So this is our point in time. This is our reference. I'm now going to show my pivot by time. And he's saying, check out your email. So I'm going to assume something happened in the last 5 minutes perhaps. So we'll go all. Going to go across the entire case now. So again, searching across all the evidence that you have in this particular case. And we can see now that we've got some more Skype chats, we've got some system files here, but we can see that there's a couple of emails. So let's filter out the emails. All right, we've got 2 emails there that are conveniently with a subject of let's make some money. All right, so let's click on one of those. And we can see here we've got Kevin McAllister sending it to an escissor.corrupt. All right, so we already know that that matches the email address we saw in the Skype chats. And he's got, hi Ed, as per our chat, please take a look at the attached and tell me if your guys can help out. So let's look at the attached. What do we got? We've got what looks to be a spreadsheet, but unfortunately it is encrypted. So I cannot see the textual content of that particular file. Okay, so again, what's another great feature that's available to us in 7.2 is the password bank. Okay, so I'm going to now choose this file, pull all my families out, isolate out that spreadsheet, and I'm now going to leverage the password bank feature. So again, what we can do at this point, so similar to other decryption tools that you can leverage a dictionary, okay? So with inside Nuix, you have the ability to export a word list, okay? So when Nuix obviously indexes its files, it creates a word list, all right? So you can export this word list out and that could become your dictionary. Likewise, Nuix also has the ability to capture exact queries. So a separate index that captures all the uppercase, special characters, and white spaces. You could also export the word list for exact queries as well and use that in the password bank as a dictionary per se. And I'll step through the process of how to do that now.
Brendan, one of the questions that just come through was, it's great that we can do that inside Nuix from a word list perspective. What about external password lists and those sorts of things? Can they be imported as well?
Absolutely. So as I step through this process here, you'll see how easy that is to do. So I'm just choosing to reload this particular file. I'm going to go across to my decryption keys. And here you have your password discovery mode. You can drop this down. It's simply a word list, okay? I've got some predefined word lists here, but you can manage that and then import a text file with the known passwords that you have. So I know you can go out to Google and have the 10,000 most commonly used passwords. You can import that into here as well. Before we proceed though, I just wanted to mention that decrypting files is not something that you would do up front. So if you're ingesting evidence for that first time, turning on the decryption or the password bank is not advised because obviously that would take a long time. Nuix very easily identifies encrypted files. So after you do that first pass, you've ingested, you could simply identify your encrypted files and then reload them and using a known password list, trying to decrypt them and move on from there. So I'll cancel that. I've chosen my particular word list. I'll go OK. Again, the processing screen will launch. This should not take too much time at all. So what's interesting is that whilst it's doing that, is that if I come back to here and clear, as I mentioned, under irregular items, Nuix will very easily flag what's encrypted, okay, but also easily flag what's actually decrypted. So that file is actually decrypted now. So I'm going to come down, look at my decrypted files, okay, and I can see here that I've got a dump from SQL, which is the file that we're looking at, and you can see here, interestingly, it's extracted out the text. It looks like Kevin's been very naughty and he's done a dump from SQL of all credit card information for potentially his clients, which he's then sent out to Edward. All right, so quite easily we've been able to decrypt that file. So some things to note with decrypted files is that I could change my metadata profile to show decrypted files. All right, so you're going to now show what's decrypted true and the password that was actually used. Okay, so this is very useful for reporting. If you need to put it into a brief of evidence or your expert report, whatever it may be, it's at your fingertips to export. Moving along to our Family tab, you'll see that Nuix still maintains the native encrypted file, but then appends the child item to that, which is the decrypted version. So when it comes time to export, so if we're talking litigation and you're exporting documents to a third party, you may want to just include the native encrypted file and not the actual decrypted version. So moving along, so I hope that excites everyone as far as the ability to be able to decrypt files. I think it was a great addition to Workbench and to 7.2. I know for me, the process of decrypting files prior to 7.2 was quite difficult. So I'll close that. I'm just going to refresh everything. David, I'm not too sure if there's any questions you want to ask at this point. Putting you on the spot.
Well, I think the good thing, Brent, is whilst some of the Nuix guys have been on the call, is we do have an answer to the question from earlier around the PST files, which has been great. So this comes back from one of the dev guys, and thanks to Rob for sort of chasing this through for us. So the answer was around the PST files and if they're locked by Outlook. So the response from Luke, and apologies for just reading it as it is, it basically says you can add either the physical drive or the logical drive as evidence. So things like file locks don't apply to the reads. However, if you take the scenario that Outlook did a write in the middle of imaging the data, then obviously that PST could be in a funny state. So I think that's the immediate answer. The other thing to bear in mind is that Nuix does have a range of collection tools as well outside of what's in Workbench. They use technologies like shadow copy. So if you'd like to take that up further, we can certainly come back to you on what might be an appropriate Nuix collection technology to collect those PSTs.
Yep. And I think just one of the questions I can see just around encrypted files is that we have someone asking if an encrypted file can be exported out and then back into the case. And yes, that you can do that. So essentially you would export the file out with an MD5 hash signature or digest signature, whatever you've chosen. And then if you have a third-party decryption tool, decrypt it, and then we have the option to reload replacement files essentially over the top. So it would essentially perform the same function and append the decrypted file as a child item against the native. Okay, so just lastly, what I wanted to show you now is the defensible and repeatable workflows around imaging and production profiles. Okay, so into our global options, okay, we have our imaging profiles. All right, so moving into here, is that you can specify profiles, whether it be matter specific or perhaps there's certain protocol guidelines that you need to adhere to. So it could be a profile around protocol, or it could be even something in relation to an expert report, whatever it may be. So these profiles are completely customizable depending on your requirements. So moving in, we'll use this one as an example. As you can see here, we've got the rendering settings. Okay, so again, these imaging settings have been there in Nuix for a long time, but it's just allowing you to have them in a profile. So coming into PowerPoint as an example, for those that again use Nuix currently, you know that we have two abilities or two scenarios of how to render Office documents. You can choose Office or you can choose an install exporter. So you can specify in the profile which of these you want to use. Likewise, you can get quite granular as far as if you want to produce hidden slides or not, or footer, or even the slide number. Okay. With Microsoft Word, it gets even deeper again, is that there's a whole list of different metadata fields that you can choose to carry across. These aren't just metadata, they're also, if there's particular formulas or anything within inside that document, you can choose whether to show the formula, show the result of the formula, or just strip the formatting altogether. Okay, so obviously this can be quite daunting to look at, but again, it's set and forget. Once you create that profile, you don't need to come back to it and select these settings each time. So moving down is that if we go to our rules first, so I was talking about this before. So you're able to set rules in relation to what items actually get a custom slip sheet. All right. Previously to 7.2, this is all handled via switches. Okay. So you now have the ability to drive this from within these profiles. Okay. So you can specify particular MIME types or kinds, even documents that you may have put that are flagged a certain way, such as encrypted files, or even documents that you put into a tag as well. So there's a specific group of documents that you want to render out as a placeholder or slip sheet, throw them into a tag. Okay, and you can build a query as well. All right, so you can have and or ors in this point. If we cancel that, so in this particular example, I could say all items, if a page count exceeds, say, 100. All right, so automatically, if the page count exceeds that, it'll render out a slip sheet. So you're not wasting time waiting for these documents to render out to PDF. So up here, this actual rule here is calling this template which is up here. Okay, and this is where you can specify how this slip sheet is to look. So you can upload your own image, you can have a custom introduction, custom metadata profile, whatever it may be. Okay, and you can have that as your default template for that particular file. And very quickly moving on from here is our production profiles. Again, depending on protocol, this is probably more tied to the eDiscovery market. So this is where you get to specify all your header and footer details, if there's red actions or highlights applied with inside your case, and also your export settings. Okay, so tipping with inside Australia is not really that relevant, but for anyone on the actual webinar who actually is required to produce TIFFs, you can specify in this point certain files that are always to produce a native and not render out, and all items if they're going to be exported out to TIFF, the DPI level, etc., that you wish to choose from there. Okay, so this just builds in that, I'll keep saying it, that repeatable and defensible workflow within inside Nuix. Okay, so just before finishing up, I just wanted to show you the proofs in the pudding as far as those slip sheets. So if I was to choose some encrypted items here, okay, choose this PDF. As you can see, it's encrypted. We go printed image, okay. And if I was to regenerate that as an example, hopefully this works for me, it will generate this custom slip sheet, okay. And the information that you include in here can be as minimal or as exhaustive as you wish it to be. So that does conclude my technical walkthrough with the various features that 7.2 brings. I honestly hope that you've taken at least one thing away from that and got some benefit. So before I throw over to David, I will just prompt for the last poll question to come up, please.
So our last poll question today is the question of, is being able to review documents and items immediately important? And our options there are yes, no, and I think the third one obviously is dependent on the matter or the case requirements. So some assistance there from all the guys on the call would be terrific, and then we'll move into the next part, which is the Q&A. So I think the overwhelming sort of observation here, and thanks to the people on the call for giving us some feedback here, is that obviously it does depend on the matter, but I suppose predominantly the case is that yes, the sooner we can get our eyes on and review documents, the better off we're all going to be. The next part of our session, and we've got a little bit of time left, and thank you very much to the people for sending sort of questions through, is really to step through some of the things that have come through from a Q&A perspective. Brendan, hopefully you've had a little bit of time to look at that, and I'd like to thank the people for sending their questions through as well. What I can promise is that if we don't get to your question today, because there have been quite a number, we'll certainly provide a written response to everybody who's put a question through as well, and if you need our assistance to get more details, then we'll certainly facilitate that with the region that you're in. Brendan, I think there was one about Elasticsearch that maybe we could cover off first, perhaps?
Yeah, I was just, you read my mind, David. So yes, the question is Elasticsearch backend a double-click install option, or is it more complicated? That's kind of a double-edged sword, really. Elasticsearch can be quite simple to install, and we have on our website some great documentation to help you perhaps get up and running in a small environment, just to get you comfortable with how it actually fits together. But look, if you're going to deploy it large scale, you would need experience within Elasticsearch going forward, just to administer the back end and to make sure that it's running smoothly and it's doing exactly what you want. Now, Nuix and my team within APAC, so the solution consultants and solution engineers, will definitely help you with that initial installation and guide you through. But it definitely does require some experience in how to administer the Elasticsearch environment. So I hope that answers your question. I mean, to give you an example, I guess, for the demonstration I ran through today, I mean, Elasticsearch was installed on just one machine, which is essentially one node, and it wasn't really using much memory, so I guess you could, to start playing with it, you could easily install it on a machine to get familiar with it, absolutely.
So I think perhaps the message there is if it's Elasticsearch and we want to run Nuix with it, proceed with caution, reach out to your local team. If you're in APAC, certainly to Brendan and his team, and we can certainly talk about the environment that you want to put together and give you some good guidance from a Nuix perspective as you go down that path. Brendan, are there any others that have sort of popped out that you'd like to cover off as well?
Yeah, just one in relation to Nuix Imager. The question we have here is, how do you use Imager in a deployment scenario where the Nuix eDiscovery licenses are required from a server? So we're talking Nuix management server, I'm assuming, that typically resides in a data center. So how would you give Imager a license when doing acquisition at a client site? So I guess the easiest way, yes, whilst you're on a client site, you would not be able to connect back to your license server. So essentially, if that's something that you are interested in, you can have a portable license dongle that accompanies you on site. So if you're using a forensic machine, as an example, you can have Imager and a license all sitting on the one dongle, which is completely normal, doable. And look, David, there's a number of questions here which I think probably will be best to actually reply directly. I'm just reading some of them now, so just excuse me.
Yeah, certainly there are some questions that don't necessarily just have sort of straightforward yes/no answers. So we'd obviously like to make sure we give you the right advice and be as comprehensive as we can. So, look, let's finish the Q&A part there, Brendan. Certainly thank you to everyone that's sent their questions through, and as I said, we'll certainly get back to you with a specific answer, work out where you're from, and make sure that the local Nuix guys get copied to assist you as well. In the next sort of stage, in terms of wrapping up the webinar today, I think one of the questions that we all get pretty frequently is, what's the best way to engage with Nuix? So certainly, if we think back to the initial webinar, there are a number of people that are considering Nuix. They haven't had any engagement with us, but certainly the Nuix community is a great sort of facility that we'd encourage you all to join. If you're a Nuix user, certainly you've obviously got access to your local account manager or technical account manager. And they're great resources for you to leverage on. What we're trying to build here is obviously a global community from a Nuix perspective. There are lots of ideas that get put up into the community, so be they FAQs, be they scripts, be they sort of features that you'd like to see in the Nuix product, and certainly the Nuix community is a great way to help our end users guide the features and functions that go into the Nuix product over time. And certainly what you've seen in the 7.2 platform are things that we know that customers have been asking for, which is great. Obviously, the other aspect is, with your account manager or technical account manager in your local geography, then they're great people to reach out to as well about roadmap information of what's happening across the product lines in 2017. So to that end, we're happy to give you some time back in your day. We're going to conclude now. We'd ask you to stay for just another moment and give us some feedback on the session this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. And we're going to wish you all the best for your day.